Who should older people live with after 70? Life changes in ways we never quite expect. When we are young, we think we will always be strong. We build families, work hard, and take care of others. But then the years pass. We reach an age where the body slows down. The mind is still sharp, but the energy is not the same. At 70, life does not stop, but it surely takes a turn. The question of where and with whom we should live becomes more important than ever. And this is not just a practical question. It is an emotional one. It is about comfort. It is about dignity. It is about not feeling like a burden. Many older people want to stay in their own homes. They have spent decades building a life in one place. Every wall holds memories. Every room tells a story. The chair by the window where they sip their tea. The pictures of loved ones on the shelf. The backyard where they planted flowers with their grandchildren. Leaving all of that behind can feel like leaving a part of themselves. But staying alone at an older age comes with challenges. The body is not as strong. Simple tasks that once felt easy become difficult. Climbing stairs. Carrying groceries. Even getting out of bed some mornings feels like a battle. And then there is the loneliness. Silence that used to feel peaceful now feels empty. Days stretch long with no one to talk to. No one to share a meal with. No one to notice if something goes wrong. Some people move in with their children. It seems like the natural thing to do. After all, parents spent their whole lives raising their children, loving them, providing for them. In the later years, it feels fair to expect some of that care in return. Living with family can bring warmth and security. Grandparents get to watch their grandchildren grow. There is always someone around to talk to, someone to help with daily tasks. But it is not always as simple as it sounds. Children have their own lives, their own responsibilities. They are busy with work, with their own families, with their own worries. An older person might feel like they are intruding. They might hesitate to ask for help. They might feel ignored. And there can be clashes. Different generations. Different habits. A life that once felt independent now feels controlled. Some choose to live with friends. People they have known for decades. People who understand them. Who have shared their joys and struggles. Living with a friend can feel like an adventure. It brings back the laughter of younger years. 2 or 3 older people in a house. Cooking meals together. Watching old movies. Sitting outside in the evening, reminiscing. But friendships are not always easy. Everyone has their own needs. Their own pace. And what happens when one friend falls ill? Who takes care of whom? There is a certain beauty in growing old with a friend. But there are also uncertainties. Questions that no one can truly answer. Then there are retirement communities. Some people hear the words and feel a deep sadness. The thought of leaving their home, their neighborhood, their independence. But for others, it is a relief. A place where they are surrounded by people their age. Where help is always available. Where loneliness is replaced by companionship. Activities. Conversations. Laughter. No more worrying about cooking meals. No more struggling to keep up with housework. But not everyone can afford it. And even in the best of places, there is always the longing for something more personal. A familiar touch. A home that truly feels like home. Some older people rely on caregivers. Paid professionals who come into their homes to assist with daily tasks. Bathing. Cooking. Cleaning. A helping hand that allows them to stay where they are. This can be the perfect solution for some. A balance between independence and support. But it is not without its flaws. Caregivers are not family. No matter how kind they are, there is always a sense of distance. A professional relationship rather than a personal one. And there is the question of trust. Of affordability. Not everyone has the means to pay for help. Not everyone is lucky enough to find a caregiver who truly cares. There is no single right answer. Some older people thrive in their children's homes. Some find new purpose in a retirement community. Some cherish their independence and find ways to stay in their own homes with a little extra support. But the truth is, what matters most is not just the place. It is the feeling of being wanted. The feeling of being safe. The feeling of being respected. Too often, older people are treated like problems to be solved. Decisions are made for them, not with them. Their voices are ignored. Their wishes dismissed. But after 70 years of living, after 70 years of giving, they deserve more than that. If you are someone facing this decision, do not let fear guide you. Let love guide you. Think about what truly makes you happy. Do not just settle for what is easiest for others. If you are someone with an older parent or grandparent, listen to them. Ask them what they want. Include them in the conversation. They may not always say it, but they feel it. The fear of being left out. The fear of being unwanted. The fear of losing themselves in a world that moves too fast and forgets too easily. No matter where an older person lives, the most important thing is human connection. A house is just walls without love. A room is just space without warmth. Whether they live alone, with family, with friends, or in a community, they need to feel seen. They need to feel valued. They need to feel like their life still matters. Because it does. The wrinkles on their hands tell stories. The gray in their hair holds wisdom. They are not just old people. They are living histories. And they deserve to live the rest of their years with dignity, with care, with love. So where should an older person live after 70? The answer is simple. They should live where they feel truly at home. Not just in a place, but in the hearts of the people around them. And if you are fortunate enough to have an older person in your life, make them feel that. Because one day, you will be in their place. And you will want the same. What are the biggest fears older adults have about where they will live, and how can these fears be addressed? One of the greatest fears is losing independence. After spending a lifetime making decisions, building a home, and creating routines, the thought of suddenly having to rely on others is terrifying. No one wants to feel like a child again, asking permission for simple things like when to eat, when to go out, or when to rest. The idea of losing control over daily life can make a person feel invisible, as if they no longer matter. Many older adults fight to stay in their own homes for as long as possible, even if it means struggling to cook, clean, or take care of their health. The thought of someone else deciding where they should live can feel like a loss of self. The key to addressing this fear is respect. Families must involve older adults in the decision-making process, allowing them to have a say in what happens next. Giving them choices instead of orders can make all the difference in how they accept change. Another fear that weighs heavily on the heart is the fear of being a burden. No one wants to feel like they are in the way. Older adults often worry that if they move in with their children or other relatives, they will disrupt the lives of their loved ones. They fear being seen as a responsibility rather than as a valued member of the family. They do not want to be pitied. They want to be cherished. This fear can make them hesitate to ask for help, even when they need it. They suffer in silence, pretending everything is fine when in reality, they may be struggling. The best way to ease this fear is through honest conversation. Families should reassure their older loved ones that their presence is not a burden but a gift. Small gestures of appreciation and inclusion can go a long way in making an older person feel wanted, not just tolerated. Loneliness is another fear that creeps into the hearts of older adults. The thought of being forgotten, of spending days in silence with no one to talk to, can be unbearable. Many older people watch their friends pass away, their children grow busy with their own lives, and their world slowly shrink until it feels like they are living in a cage of solitude. Moving into a retirement community or nursing home can deepen this fear if they believe they will be left there, visited only on holidays or special occasions. Addressing this fear requires effort from both older adults and their families. Staying connected is not just about physical presence. A phone call, a shared meal, or a simple conversation can remind an older person that they still matter. Encouraging social activities, hobbies, and interactions with others can help keep loneliness at bay. Another painful fear is the loss of familiar surroundings. A home is not just a building. It is a collection of memories. It is the place where children were raised, where laughter filled the air, and where every corner holds a story. Leaving that behind can feel like erasing a part of one's life. Many older adults resist moving because they fear they will never feel at home again. The key to easing this transition is to bring pieces of the past into the new environment. Familiar furniture, cherished photos, and personal belongings can make a new place feel more like home. More importantly, Emotional support from loved ones can make any place feel safe. Perhaps the deepest fear of all is being mistreated or neglected. Horror stories of elder abuse, neglect, or being ignored in a care facility are enough to make any older adult afraid of losing their independence. They fear being spoken to like a child, ignored when they express their needs, or worse, being taken advantage of. This fear is valid and must be taken seriously. Families should research any care facility thoroughly, visit regularly, and make sure their loved one feels safe and respected. Older adults should also be encouraged to speak up if something does not feel right. What are the hidden psychological effects of living alone versus living with family or in a retirement community? My friend, let me tell you something that only time and experience can truly teach. There is a world of difference between living alone and living with family or in a retirement community. Some of these differences are plain as day. Others hide beneath the surface, shaping the mind and spirit in ways one might never expect. I have seen both sides, felt the weight of solitude, and basked in the warmth of companionship. And let me assure you, each path comes with its own hidden psychological effects. When a person lives alone, at first, it can feel like freedom. No one to answer to, no obligations beyond what one sets for oneself. The quiet is soothing. The space belongs entirely to the self. But give it time. That silence can turn heavy. Thoughts, once just passing clouds, begin to swirl and settle like a storm with no end. Loneliness does not announce itself with grand gestures. No, it seeps in like a slow-moving fog, creeping into the corners of the mind. You wake up, no voices in the next room. You eat, no laughter around the table. You go to bed, no footsteps reminding you that someone else shares your world. Over time, this solitude can shape the mind in ways both profound and unsettling. Living alone sharpens independence, but can dull emotional resilience. With no one to share daily struggles, worries magnify. A small ache makes one wonder if it could be something serious. A minor setback feels like a personal failure because there is no one to offer reassurance. Decision-making becomes both a strength and a burden. The mind learns to stand tall, yet it also grows accustomed to self-doubt. The world outside can feel distant. Social interactions, once natural, begin to require effort. The longer one spends alone, the harder it becomes to reconnect. The heart forgets how to lean on others, and the soul starts to crave something it does not always know how to name. Now, let me tell you about living with family. Family. The source of life's greatest joys and deepest frustrations. To live among those who have known you since childhood or those who have grown with you through years of shared memories is to be constantly reminded of connection. It is a double-edged sword. On one hand, there is always someone to talk to. Someone to share a meal with, to argue with, to laugh with. The simple act of being seen, of being part of a collective rhythm, keeps the mind engaged and the heart alive. There is comfort in routine, in knowing that even if one stumbles, someone will be there to help them stand again. But, my friend, let us not romanticize it too much. Family can also be exhausting. There is always an opinion. Always a need, spoken or unspoken, to compromise. The mind does not have the same stillness as when living alone. Privacy is a rare luxury. In a household full of voices, one's own can sometimes feel drowned out. There are moments when one longs for silence, for space, for autonomy. Yet, even in those moments, there is an unshakable truth. Being surrounded by family, despite the conflicts, keeps the spirit from withering. Loneliness may still visit, but it does not make a home there. Now, a retirement community, that is a different experience altogether. It is neither true solitude nor the closeness of family. It is a world of its own. In a way, it is like living in a village where everyone is navigating the same chapter of life. There is companionship, yes, but there is also a strange kind of distance. People form friendships, but these friendships often come with the knowledge that nothing is permanent. Loss becomes a more frequent visitor. The weight of time sits more heavily. Yet, there is comfort in shared understanding. There are activities, conversations, a sense of belonging. The mind stays sharper because it is engaged. The heart, though often touched by sorrow, does not have to carry its burdens alone. The psychological effects of each living situation shape a person in ways they may not even recognize until years have passed. Living alone fosters independence, but can breed isolation. Living with family provides connection but demands patience. Living in a retirement community offers companionship but reminds one constantly of life's fragility. None is inherently better than the other. The choice depends on what the soul needs most. Some thrive in solitude, finding strength in self-reliance. Others need the embrace of family to feel whole. And some find peace in the balance of community without the intensity of familial ties. How does losing a spouse later in life influence decisions about where to live, and what are the best ways to cope with such transitions? After a lifetime spent building a home together, the absence of a partner makes every corner of that space feel different. The chair by the fireplace is empty. The kitchen, once bustling with shared meals, feels lifeless. The thought of staying might bring comfort or unbearable pain. For some, the walls of that home hold too many memories, making it impossible to stay. For others, those same memories serve as an anchor, providing stability in the midst of change. The decision to move or stay is never simple. It is shaped by emotions, finances, family, and health. Some find solace in downsizing, moving to a smaller home that does not feel so empty. Others relocate to be closer to children, grandchildren, or dear friends who offer the support and companionship that suddenly becomes even more vital. Adjusting to a new home at this stage in life is no easy task. Everything that was once second nature, the way light fell into a certain room, the familiar sounds of a neighborhood, changes. A new space can feel foreign, like it belongs to someone else. Yet, over time, it becomes another chapter rather than an ending. It takes effort to fill new surroundings with warmth. Bringing along familiar objects, establishing new routines, and inviting people in can help bridge the gap between past and present. Though the heart longs for what was, there is still life to be lived. The key is to embrace what remains while honoring what was lost. Coping with such a profound transition is not a matter of simply keeping busy or distracting the mind. It requires an acceptance of grief, an understanding that it will come in waves. There will be days when the weight of absence is unbearable, when memories flood the heart with an ache so deep it feels endless. In those moments, it is crucial to let the pain be felt. Suppressing it only delays healing. Speaking about the loss with others who understand, whether close friends, a support group, or even a counselor, helps lighten the burden. Engaging in activities that bring a sense of purpose becomes essential. Some find comfort in volunteering, offering time to help others as a way of channeling their grief into something meaningful. Others dive into hobbies that once brought joy but may have been set aside. Reading, painting, gardening, or even learning something new provides not just distraction but also renewal. Movement is important as well. A simple daily walk, feeling the air on one's face, seeing life continue around them, helps to remind the grieving heart that they are still part of the world. Loneliness is perhaps the hardest part of losing a spouse. Even surrounded by family, there are nights that stretch too long, mornings that arrive too quietly. Some find comfort in deepening friendships, reaching out to old companions, or even forming new bonds. Others eventually open their hearts to companionship once again, not to replace what was lost, but to embrace what remains. The idea of loving after loss may seem impossible at first, but as time moves forward, so does the understanding that life is not meant to be lived in solitude. How do cultural expectations influence where older people live after 70, and how does this affect their quality of life? Ah, my friend, sit down and listen closely, for this is not a question to be answered in haste. Life is a long road, and where that road leads after 70 is often shaped by the culture one has lived in. I have seen it with my own eyes. In some places, an elder is the heart of the family, honored and cherished, never left to sit alone in a quiet house. In others, aging is seen as a slow fading, a passing of relevance, a whisper in the wind rather than a voice at the table. And this, my friend, makes all the difference in where an old soul finds themselves resting their weary bones in the final stretch of life. In cultures where family is the pillar of existence, the elderly stay close to their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren. The home is never too small to make space for the wisdom of a life well lived. In such places, an old man still feels like a father, a teacher, a guiding light. He wakes to the sound of children laughing, to the smell of his daughter cooking, to the firm handshake of his son who seeks his counsel. He does not count the days in loneliness but in stories, in conversations, in hands held and tears wiped away. Life remains warm, full, and meaningful. He is not just surviving. He is still living. But I have also seen the other side. In places where independence is king and self-reliance is prized above all else, the old are often left to their own devices. They move into retirement homes or assisted living facilities, sometimes by choice but often by necessity. Their children, though they love them, live lives too fast to slow down for the steady pace of aging. An old man in such a place wakes to silence. Meals are scheduled, conversations are polite but distant, and the walls of his room may be filled with memories, yet those memories cannot hold his hand. The days become routine. The heart beats, but the soul begins to quiet. He may be safe, he may be cared for, but he is not needed. And when a man feels he is no longer needed, he begins to drift like a leaf untethered from the tree. The quality of life, my dear listener, is not measured in medicine or in the softness of a bed. It is measured in purpose. A man who is surrounded by family, who still holds a role in their lives, who is listened to and respected, will wake each morning with a reason to rise. His body may ache, his steps may be slower, but his spirit remains strong. He will laugh. He will tell stories. He will remind the young ones of where they came from and help them see where they might go. His life will remain full until the very last breath. But a man who is placed in a home where the walls close in, where he waits for visits that grow less frequent, where his stories are met with nods rather than excitement, that man will begin to shrink. Loneliness is a slow poison. It seeps into the bones, making them heavier. It dulls the mind faster than age itself. A man who once led, who once loved, who once stood strong, will begin to feel like a shadow in his own life. His laughter fades. His voice softens. And one day he will sit in a chair by the window, watching the world move on without him, and wonder if he was ever really here at all. Ah, but do not mistake my words for bitterness. No, my heart is not heavy, only wise. I have seen both paths, and I know that culture, more than wealth, more than comfort, determines which one an old man walks. It is not about where he lives, but about how he is seen. If he is still a part of the family, if his presence still matters, if he is still loved not out of duty but out of true connection, then his days will be golden. But if he is set aside, placed somewhere out of sight, left to become a memory before his time, then even the grandest facility, the softest bed, the best doctors cannot fill the emptiness that grows within. How do financial limitations shape the living choices available to older people, and what are the best ways to plan ahead? I have seen it time and time again. A man who once lived without a care now finds himself staring at his bank account, realizing he does not have enough to live as he hoped. He cannot afford to stay in his home, for the repairs, the taxes, the very walls themselves seem to demand more than he can give. He looks at retirement communities, the ones with bright gardens and friendly staff, but the cost is beyond reach. Even a small apartment in a decent neighborhood may stretch his pockets too thin. So he is left with choices that are not truly choices at all. He moves in with his children, if they are willing and able. He settles into a government-assisted home, where the food is bland, the halls are quiet, and the days blend together. Or worse, he fights to keep his independence, staying alone in a house too big, too empty, too full of silence, because he cannot bear to admit that his financial reality has left him with nowhere else to go. And yet, there is another way. A path that is walked by those who see ahead, who understand that old age is not something that sneaks up on you, but something that must be prepared for. The best way to plan ahead is not to wait until the weight of years presses down upon your shoulders. It is to start early, to be wise when your hands are still steady, when your mind is still sharp. It begins with saving, not just for the dreams of youth, but for the security of old age. A man who puts aside a little month after month, year after year, will find that when the time comes, he is not left at the mercy of fate. He has options, real options. He can choose where he will live, how he will be cared for, what kind of life he will have. Beyond saving, one must also think of the home itself. Many make the mistake of buying a house too large, too grand, believing they will always need the space. But when the children are grown and the stairs become an enemy, that house turns into a burden. A wise man plans for a home that will serve him in all seasons of life. He chooses a place that is manageable, affordable, close to family, to friends, to the things that bring joy. And if he is truly thinking ahead, he considers shared living. Not just retirement homes, but communities where neighbors look out for one another, where companionship is built into the walls, where loneliness does not creep in like an unwelcome guest. Yet, even the best laid plans can be shaken by the unexpected. Illness, loss, economic shifts, all can threaten the stability of a carefully prepared future. That is why a man must not only save, not only choose his home wisely, but also secure himself against the unknown. Insurance, investments, a will that leaves no room for confusion. These are not just paperwork. They are the tools that keep a man from being tossed by the winds of misfortune. And most importantly, he must talk to his family, not in whispers, not as a burden, but as a man who has lived long enough to know that the best way to shape his future is to face it head-on. How can older people ensure they are not treated as burdens when they move in with family or into assisted living? Ah, my dear friend, let me tell you something I have learned over the years. When you reach a certain age and find yourself moving in with family or stepping into assisted living, there is a worry that settles in your heart. The fear of being seen as a burden is not just an idle thought. It gnaws at you in quiet moments, whispering doubts and making you question your place in the world. I have seen it. I have felt it. And I have learned that it does not have to be this way. The key is to remember that age does not strip away your worth. Just because your hair has turned white and your hands are not as steady as they once were does not mean you have nothing left to give. The first and most important thing you must do is carry yourself with dignity. When you walk into a new living situation, whether it is with family or in a care home, do not shrink yourself. Hold your head up. Speak with confidence. Show them that you are still the person you have always been, full of wisdom, humor, and stories worth sharing. People mirror what they see. If you present yourself as a burden, they will treat you as one. If you present yourself as someone valuable, they will see your worth. It is also crucial to stay involved in the lives of those around you. I have known elders who sit quietly in a corner, saying nothing, doing nothing, just waiting for someone to pay them attention. That is the fastest way to fade into the background. Instead, take interest in your family's lives. Ask about their work, their struggles, their joys. If you are in assisted living, get to know the staff and other residents. Share your experiences. Offer advice when it is welcomed, but do not force it upon others. People appreciate those who make them feel seen and heard. And when you show genuine interest in them, they will reciprocate. Now, let me tell you a secret that many old folks overlook. Find ways to contribute. It does not have to be anything grand. If you are able, help around the house in small ways. Wash a few dishes. Fold some laundry. Offer to babysit the grandchildren for a little while. If you are in assisted living, find ways to be useful within that community. Maybe you can help organize events. Maybe you can be the one who listens to others when they need someone to talk to. Even if you are physically limited, you can still be a source of comfort, encouragement, and wisdom. There is always something you can do to make life better for those around you. Another thing I have learned is that humor is your best friend. Nobody enjoys being around someone who complains all the time. Yes, aging comes with aches and pains. Yes, there will be moments of frustration. But if you can laugh at life, if you can find joy in the small moments, people will be drawn to you. Share funny stories from your youth. Make light of your forgetfulness instead of sulking over it. When you bring laughter into a room, you become someone people want to be around, not someone they feel they have to care for out of obligation. Respect is a two-way street, and just because you are older does not mean you are automatically entitled to it. If you want your family or caregivers to respect you, you must also respect them. Understand that they have their own lives, their own worries, their own exhaustion. Do not demand too much from them. Do not guilt them into spending time with you. Instead, cherish the moments they do give you. Be grateful for their efforts, no matter how small. A simple thank you can go a long way. Independence is another powerful tool. Even if you need assistance with certain tasks, maintain as much independence as possible. Do not rely on others for things you can still do yourself. Keep your mind active. Read books. Engage in hobbies. If you are in assisted living, take part in activities. If you live with family, do not make them responsible for your happiness. Find ways to keep yourself engaged. When people see that you are doing your best to take care of yourself, they will admire you rather than resent you. Let me tell you something that has taken me a lifetime to learn. Love freely, and do not hold grudges. When you live with family, tensions will arise. When you are in assisted living, conflicts will come. But at our age, there is no time for bitterness. Forgive quickly. Express appreciation often. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. Hug them when you can. Leave no room for regrets. I have seen too many elders make the mistake of retreating into loneliness, feeling sorry for themselves, waiting for others to make them feel important. But that is not the way to live. If you want to be cherished rather than tolerated, if you want to be seen as a blessing rather than a burden, then take charge of how you show up in the world. Stay engaged. Stay useful. Stay kind. Keep your sense of humor. And above all, never forget that your presence still matters. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel, so until next time, take care.